The ACC Network. He's here today for the ACC campus tour. Got to watch a little bit of practice today, so if you want to fire up some questions to Coach, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, it's Jody Dimling with CardinalAuthority.com here in Louisville. Just kind of, your thoughts, I guess maybe big picture where Louisville kind of fits in going into this season in the ACC, coming off of a tough year last year for Scott Satterfield and those guys.
Right. Well, anything can happen, obviously, from one year to the next. I mean, they went from Louisville went from a very poor record to an 8-win season after a 2-win season when Coach first got there. So, bam, it happened quick and everybody got excited. And then maybe it came back to reality a little bit. But, from what I saw, I think what happens with the fan base is, they see the starters, returning starters, they see maybe the freshmen that are coming in, but they don't see the guys in between that are developing in the program. And even some of the transfers that come in. I mean, nowadays, you can build a team faster with the transfer rules than you ever could before, because now you can truly get mature guys to come in that can make an impact immediately. It used to be that you had to go to junior college and kind of hope for the best, but now you could bring in 20 transfers sometimes, and all of a sudden that team looks completely different. The one thing that Louisville has, that is critical, is the quarterback. And I think Malik is a big time player. I know he had his turnover issues a year ago, which obviously hurt, but I'm sure he's learned his lesson and will do a better job in that area. But if you don't have a quarterback who could do it, it's tough.
Cameron, you got anything, Coach?
I'll follow up with one more, Coach. Just in regards to that and talking about the guys in between and building, Scott told us yesterday that the guys look different than they did. In all your time of being a head coach and being around football, how important are those strength staff guys and taking guys in the offseason and getting them to look different than what they did the year before?
Right. I mean, obviously your offseason, you build your team, you build unity, you build camaraderie, you build teamwork, but you also build muscle. There's different lifting cycles throughout the year, and in season you have a maintenance program, but out of season you can get more strength, you can get more size, you get more quick twitch, more flexibility. I mean, you become a better athlete in the off season because that's how you're training in the weight room. And they were showing me a kid that came in at like 212 pounds and weighs almost 260 now, a D lineman that all of a sudden is getting developed. And that would never happen unless there was an off season where that was the primary goal. So I saw a bunch of good looking guys out there. I'm a body type guy being a former coach, and you get to see guys that have the length and the broad shoulders and the big hands and the guys that can really move that mass, across the field. And, I saw a really good looking, well-conditioned football team. And I also saw a practice that was highly organized, very enthusiastic day. I know it's early. I know they don't have pads on, but super impressed with the organization of it and how they moved from drill to drill and how they got high reps in the amount of time they have for practice. So that's impressive as well.
Next question for Matt McGavick.
Hey, Coach, this is Matt McGavick with Sports Illustrated. Like you said, it's hard to draw a lot of foregone conclusions after just one day of practice with the pads not even on. But was there any one player or even a unit that stood out to you the most when you were taking a look at practice today?
Well, there were some really good-looking running backs as far as just body types are concerned. There are two linebackers, Avery and is it Montgomery? Number 7, number 9, they're not the biggest, they're not the tallest guys, but when you play that inside linebacker position, you don't necessarily have to be a big, long defender. You can be a little more compact and get under the pads of guards. And that type of thing. And I was really impressed with what they looked like, how they moved, and just hearing about the leadership qualities of both of those guys inside, because you got to have that, just as as far as leadership on the defense, just as much as you need it at the quarterback position on offense.
Next question to Rick Bozich.
Yeah, Coach, thanks for doing this. You coached for a number of years, and last year Louisville had some issues with turnovers. When you had teams that had those kinds of issues, what kind of things can you do to change that? Is it mainly bad luck that it happens, or are there things actually players?
It's more than luck, but sometimes it is luck. I mean, sometimes the ball bounces a certain way, but the goal is not to have the ball bounce. The goal is to keep it from getting on the ground. And it's obviously, as a runner and as a passer, you want to throw it to your team. But what you do is, especially now, I'm sure it's already been done in the spring, in the off season, you study every single turnover. What happened? Why did this happen? Is this something we can control? I mean, sometimes you drop back as a quarterback, you get hit as you're throwing and the ball pops in the air, it's a pick. Or you're in the process of throwing the ball, you're vulnerable, you get hit, the ball squirts out. Or is it you running the ball and not tucking it like you're supposed to? Are you not having the proper fundamentals? Or are you making poor decisions and putting the ball in harm's way as a decision maker in the pocket or even out of the pocket? I mean, bottom line, most balls are directed by the quarterback unless he's hit while he's throwing it. And, he's the one that's trying to fit it in too tight of a window. He's the one who's throwing the ball too late. I mean, when I used to train quarterbacks, your footwork would dictate to you when the ball should come out. At the top of your drop, somebody's coming out of their break. When you hitch your first time, there's number two. If there's a number three receiver, it's on your second hitch. Get the ball out. Either hit the third receiver or take off. What depends on what your skill set. If you could take off running and got some space, do it. If you're not a great runner and you got to throw the ball up in the stands, throw it up in the stands. But you got to be not only a good passer, but a good decision maker. And the decisions you make usually decide whether you have turnovers or not, most of the time.
The next question is for Eric Crawford, then Pat Jaggers, and then Michael McCammon.
Mark, thank you for doing this. Of the handful of players I've interviewed that have already had a chance to get out and work out, almost all of them say, we're just glad to be out here without masks on and being able to do our thing. How careful do we all need to be kind of basing projections on what we saw last season, given just how difficult a lot of the things were in the preparation standpoint? Obviously, there were excellent teams, but how much do you think it did hinder a lot of teams?
Well, I mean, obviously, everybody was dealing with it. If you lived in a certain state, you might have more restrictions than another state and things of that nature. But for the most part, everybody was dealing with it. But it was, as you say, unprecedented, the things that everybody had to go through. And the ability to build your team in an off season, because every season truly is a new team. There's new leaders, there's new young guys that come up and start to make plays and guys that are added to your program. And so, if you can't develop the camaraderie, the teamwork, the work ethic, all those things that you need to do in an off season, when you can't do that, it's hard to reach your full potential. So, I mean, not that you want to give every coach in America a pass last year, but if there ever was a season to do it, last year was the one to do it.
Go ahead, Pat.
Hey, Mark. As you know, Louisville football was picked to finish, sixth in the division after media days. And I know it's kind of hard to tell with it, just having a ample amount of time to watch the team. But based off your assessment of Louisville and the rest of the conference, where do you kind of pick the cards to finish and stack up against the rest of the conference?
Right. Well, here's the deal. There's being picked sixth is not the worst thing in the world, because when it comes to expectations, there's a good chance you're going to beat that expectation. But I know this. If you look at the history of Coach Satterfield's career, as a head coach especially, I mean, the years at App State, when I was in Miami, we played them the first game of the year, okay? My second season, I believe, at App State. So what do you do all summer? You study your first opponent. You study your first two opponents. But the more I watched film of what they were doing, the more you could see excellence in how they coach and how they execute. You know, you sometimes can control what kind of athletes you got. But the bottom line is you could tell when you watch film, is this group zippered up or not? And so, you know, they won a lot of games. I'd rather play a Power 5 team that's at the bottom of the conference than an App State team that's used to winning, because teams that are used to winning are hard to beat. And they're winning for certain reasons, and that's the leadership of the program. So, you know, what I saw was a tremendously coached team, well-coached team. And I believe for the most part, he brought a lot, if not most of his assistants from App State. So they know what they're doing. They're excellent coaches. And it's going to be, you know, it would not shock me to see him, you know, jump at least 2 or 3 spots on those preseason rankings.
Go ahead, Michael.
Hey, Coach. Michael McCammon at Cardinal Authority. You've mentioned Malik in the quarterback position a couple of times. That's kind of viewed as one of the strengths of the ACC this year. From your vantage point, how would you describe this year's crop of starting quarterbacks in the league?
Right. Well, just watching football, whether as a coach, whether you're just watching it for fun or watching it to study, one of the most painful things to do is watch teams that they just don't have a quarterback who can do it, whether because he's inexperienced or he just doesn't have it. You know, poor quarterback play makes for bad football. And so we're going to have a lot of quarterbacks in this league, you know, with starting experience other than Duke, and guys that not only started but have been pretty dang productive, some extremely productive. So I think the league's going to be fun to watch, and I think if people are going to have a shot at beating a Clemson, you don't beat Clemson unless you have really good quarterback play on the day that you play them. And I think there's a lot of quarterbacks that could have that lightning in the bottle kind of day because of the skill set they have and the experience that they have. So I think it's gonna be a fun year to watch ACC football in general because of that quarterback position. I lost Rocco. We lost your sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We got time for one more, guys. We got our guys are finishing up practice right now. We got time for one more. Anybody's got one?
I appreciate it, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.